plug my computer in. We are live.
All right, Wendy.
I usually go over these a little bit more.
Are we good, Eric?
We're live?
Okay, we have a quorum, so let's call the meeting to order. It is 4:02. Up first, let's have a report from the minute. Everybody got the minutes in advance of the meeting. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at the minutes and any questions or comments?
Comments, motion to approve.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Yay.
Okay. Let's see, Diane, you want to walk us through the financials before we go on to that motion?
Yes. So for the financials for May, our total assets as of the 31st of May were $917,966.
Mine down.
Don't look at this. Don't look at that now.
Okay.
This is a nearly $35,000 decrease from the prior month. All of that is due to the sort of delay in payment from the county, which we received our first quarter payment. Must have been at the end of June. So that's $105. So $105,000.
So it's a timing difference.
It's a time issue. That was a bit of a longer delay than normal, but we've been paid for the first 3 months.
Okay, so does that come out of the 187 or?
No, that'll be I'm just telling you that in June it got settled. Like in June, we're in better shape.
All right.
So we're back to the position that we would normally be in.
At this time of the year.
So what's accounts receivable? Is it minus that?
So now it's $187,000 minus $105,000.
Yeah, so that was his question.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're down to what, 82,000?
Yeah, which is 2 months from the county and 1 month from the LBC.
All right, and then that would raise our checking savings to 563-ish.
Yeah, so it's just shifting it from asset to asset, okay.
Oh, I see. Total liabilities as of May, $111,185. Small decrease. The accounts payable were a little bit high at the end of May. Most of those checks have been issued. We had all of our insurance renewals take place at this time of year, so a lot of that figure is the insurance renewals. We did renew the policies with our prior carriers, but there is going to be a conversation about changing some of those policies. Total equity as of May 31 stands at $806,783,000. Of exchange, we still have the 4 designated funds and restricted funds for needs. On the statement of activity side, budget, I mean, we're looking good this month. I'm going to just do the fiscal year to date. We have a net income of $45,000. We have budgeted $43,000, so we're a little bit ahead. We do have, so if you look at the grant on the income side, we have this $20,766. That includes January through May. That includes like the first quarterly payment on that grant. So it does look like we're ahead by $10,000 on that grant, but most of that is passed through for the consultant. The consultant is $5,600 a month, but they're paying 3 months at a time.
And that's that child care initiative?
So we have to go execute the transaction to get the next quarter.
Yeah.
Between now and the next
We
meeting.
don't really have to execute anything, they just send it in. But so like in all, we our fee that we probably netted from the first quarter is about $8,000. So we had budgeted for $15,000. We'll probably make a little bit more than $15,000.
For the year.
Yeah.
Just on the child care grant.
Yeah, just because, I mean, there's, you know, the expenses aside from the consultant haven't been that high, so that just accrues to us.
That's essentially just to subsidize the additional cost that primarily I'm bearing by having to be a part of this process, which was not part of our original work scope. So I want to make sure that they're paying so the county doesn't feel like this came in as an additional requirement without knowing that they're subsidized.
No, they should pay for the work that you're putting forth and everybody on the team, so that makes sense.
I mean, she has to process the financials, but I'm the one who's going to the various meetings, helping her conduct it.
But anyway, otherwise on the, you know, on the P&L side, I think we're looking pretty good to budget.
Just so everyone's aware, we do budget for interns. We have one that's in the office right now, essentially on a close to full-time basis, or the summer. Jackie's been here before, was here last year. We have 2 part-time interns, which will also start this week or next.
They started last week. It's about 12 to 15 hours.
That, I can't remember exactly what we budgeted, because when we budget, we don't know necessarily exactly what our mix is gonna be between high school kids and college kids. College kids come back and get a slight bump, $1 more an hour when they return. But it's about the same as last year, so I think we'll track pretty closely. We just try to be opportunistic. If there's somebody who's coming back, if there were 2 of them that came back, we might run a little over budget. If there's none that come back, we might run a little under budget. I think we'll be pretty close.
Makes sense.
They do good work.
Amazing.
So when they come back, you've got an economy from they've already known what they're doing and stepping into an existing.
Yeah, it's a huge productivity gain for us for a couple months. Okay.
Are there any questions?
I only have one. I know from time to time you produce like an aging of receivables.
I can pull that for you.
I don't need it pulled right this minute. It'd just be good to probably see that on an occasion.
So I had this conversation when I was at the course last week. I talked about things that happened at the county and why we changed the way that we post our financials, and it generated quite a discussion. So last week I was in Albany, at Albany University for the New York State Economic Development Council's basic economic development course. So with people from IDAs and EDCs all over the state, it was fascinating. I learned a lot. But anyway, so we had this conversation, and it generated a lot of interest.
So what she's getting at is the fact that this is another thing that people could triangulate on. I don't think we have any trouble
We got a
providing.
lot of support for it.
We will provide whatever detail you guys need, but in terms of what we post, especially ahead of time, probably avoid anything that's transactional like that, where a single check to a single vendor can be identified, because that was the source of the problem the county had. Is that once somebody can mimic that, then they only have to spoof the fact that they are that entity.
However, I got a lawyer who gave the opinion that since we have this policy that says that we're posting more compressed data,
Aggregated data, yeah.
aggregated data, but you are welcome to request more detailed data. So because we have that as our policy, she thinks it's acceptable for us to post that data, post it on our website, but provide more detailed data to this group for review.
And to the public, so, but at least at that
But the
point,
public has to ask for it, but this group can get it every month. We, like, what I post online doesn't have to be the same as what I send to this group, as long as I've been clear that the details are available to the public.
yeah, and at that point, somebody
So I
has to,
think-
they have to identify themselves to request it, which is
Yeah.
part of what defeats the process.
But I think that allows me to provide the A&R and the
That's good.
payable and receivable summary.
Glad to hear that
To
somebody.
the committee members only.
Yeah.
And or the board members.
Yeah, and not necessarily post them on the website.
Right, well, they're available for anyone who wants to come in and look at them. It's not a matter of, it's just not available on the website for security reasons,
Mhm.
which obviously needs to be the case nowadays.
So we don't meet in July, so it's something we'll do in August.
Audit finance meets, the full board doesn't meet in July.
Oh, we still meet.
Yeah.
We don't get a first.
No, in Westford, we're.
I have I saved my biggest agenda.
Do we have any questions on the financials? Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Since we're meeting in July and the full board is not, do we have the authority as a committee to approve the payment of bills in July without vote by the board? I'm sure you have bills that need to be paid.
Well, we don't approve the payment of bills.
We don't.
No, we don't even get that list anymore.
No, but you never, I mean, you reviewed them, I think, for internal controls, for
So as long as it's in the
Committee-
budget, then
committee
the
due
board
diligence.
members that sign checks can sign.
Yeah.
And you have access to the
So
register.
they go through an approval process between Jim and I, because like 2 members of the staff have to approve them, unless they're over $10,000.
So for this city idea, I could probably stop approving payment of bills as long as it's in the budget.
And
No,
your-
well, we have
and
a
your
policy, we have a policy.
I
that
would have to
says-
change my policy.
Well, I can't speak for what you can do.
As long as your
Ideas
policy
may be
aligns, you
different.
should be able to do that. Kara,
But we have a threshold
Okay.
that requires.
Yeah, I've been talking to her about it. I think that,
But we also have dual signing on all the checks, don't we?
yeah, we have 2 persons signing.
So 2 approval is like in-house, and then
2
a
signatures.
board and a staff member that signs.
Right, so
Very
we've
rare.
got some redundancy there to protect the integrity of the process if it's not approved at this level.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have impending property sales. Is that you, Jim?
Yeah, I just want to update you on where we are. We're still in the comment period whenever a publicly owned piece of land is in, has a legitimate offer. We have to notice it for 90 days. So we are still in the midst of that. When it comes out of that, then there will be a scheduled close. And I'm anticipating that to be in August. And since we don't have a full board meeting, we'll talk a little bit about this at the board tomorrow, just so everybody's aware of where we are on this. We're in dialogue with the party that's made this offer quite regularly. Chuck from the IDA is also trying to schedule them for a potential IDA, at least application, if not approval. They would also begin the process of planning with the Queensbury Planning Department. It's up to them when they start that. I keep counseling them that they don't need to wait until the comment period is over. But we haven't yet seen either of those 2 things happen. So somewhere between early August and Labor Day, I anticipate this close based on what their schedule and timing is. We'll be ready to close as soon as early August when the 90-day period comes up. The offer was made at appraised value. The appraisal was less than 3 months old. So I feel very confident that we're getting fair market value for the property. There's actually 3 lots that the offer extends to. Lots 1 and 2, which are the 2 primary lots that face the road frontage part of this park. That they've made direct offers to purchase. Lot 3, which sits behind one of those lots, they have an option to purchase that. So it gets a little complicated, but all of it has been noticed. So the 2 that they've made a bona fide offer for, and the 3rd, which they have an option at the fair market value. So if they only buy lots 1 and 2, it'll be roughly $300,000. If they buy all 4 of them, it'll be just under $400,000.
All 4 or all 3?
All 3, I'm sorry. So
Would we ever, if they don't buy 3, are we ever gonna be able to sell it? Is it an accessible lot?
I think anybody who
Behind
buys an
1 and 2?
adjacent lot may, so the cannabis operation, which bought the lot at the very back of the park, could also seek this lot too, so that they could expand. It's mostly so that the purchase of the lot, it's actually as big a lot, but at half the value, and that's because a lot of it has declared wetlands that run through it. But the reason that either party would want to buy the lot is so that they have a greater land mass to be able to run the ratios of buffer zones and green areas against. So depending on what their development plan is for their lots, it may be in their advantage to aggregate this lot so that they could expand the footprint of a building. That could happen in the near term or the far term. The reason these guys made this option a part of their sale is they wanted the right of first refusal on that, so that if somebody were to make an offer on that, they have the option that they could execute. And it's a matter of having already been declared to the public, that wouldn't have to go through 90 days in order for them to act on that. I think it's a really smart move on their part, but I think one of the two would likely purchase it in the long run if they ever wanted to expand over their original concept.
Is the option at the then fair market value, or is it locked in at the current price?
Well, the option right now is at the assessed value, and we have the current price listed, but I think the language of it is that it would always be at the, or I guess appraised, not assessed, appraised.
We identified the party in our notification,
Yes.
so you can say it now for this meeting. Who it
Yeah.
is.
I don't remember exactly what their legal designation is, but
What the use is gonna be.
well, no, that much is clear. I just can't remember the name of their LLC. They purchase, or they essentially build a wide, long, it almost looks like a storage unit, but it's essentially subdividable, operational segments of between 3 and typically as much as 8 or 10,000 square feet. So essentially what they do is build a long building and divide it up into like 8 or 10 smaller pieces. And then they lease that out primarily to tradespeople so that you can store a truck, do some work, have an address. Well, it's not storage, it's
It's like
active.
contractors.
Yeah, it's active work. Like you could imagine that a landscaping business might choose to do this so that they can store their equipment in the winter. You could imagine like a cabinet maker, that they already run one of these facilities in Glenville. And it's
Like an electrician,
Yeah.
different
primarily
contractors could-
tradespeople that take these spaces up. Could be small, not really manufacturers, but maybe assembly component process. Could be small print shop. Could be a number of things that fit the zoning. But it's hard to find 3, 4, 5,000 square feet in a modern building. So that's essentially what they're getting, is call it an industrial, development unit. To me, they're in the right spot because a lot of these businesses were purchasing tiny lots in the Warren, Washington County IDA land, which was just down the road across from the airport. And almost all of that is gone now. So it's actually cheaper for them not to have to build and simply be able to lease, but that market has already been established there. So there are a number of small contractors, as I said, cabinet makers, things like that are already in that area. I would imagine that this just gives them more places to be. We probably get 3 or 4 of these kind of inquiries a year. Somebody who's trying to start a business or is trying to locate a business here and needs a place to store equipment, have an address, have it be presentable so that they could receive customers or do some amount of public-facing work out of it, have a bathroom, all the things that they need in order just to employ people. These guys obviously understand that market, and they've been in the space for a number of years. So I feel really confident about the idea.
And John Stroh and the Queensbury knows about it and they're okay with it.
No,
They don't know,
well, they can't know until it was public.
but now it's.
Now it's been made public, and I can't out them, or I can't present this to Queensbury. They have to go present it. So this is what I counsel them to do, which is to, at some point, go engage with the planning department in Queensbury, which we were quite happy to broker. But I can't do it on their behalf, so they gotta be ready to do it.
Right, so if John's at the meeting tomorrow, he's gonna be hearing about this for the first time.
Well, theoretically, he wouldn't. If his planning department is watching his notices, then they became aware of it the day that it got posted. But I'm under an obligation to not disclose ahead of them. So until they went into that public comment period, I couldn't share that. Once they went into the public comment period, John is receiving it as a member of the public. Until they choose to go to him as the municipal leader, that's all that's happened. because they haven't made application yet. I mean, theoretically, you wouldn't buy the lots unless you intended to do that.
Do we have a paper copy of the notice period of what's been?
Yeah, that we got back from the state, exactly how that all, I've never seen that form before. But it's
It's
like
got their name on it.
yeah, so it's a legal document that essentially says that the notice period started on this date and it ends on this date, and it has the name of the entity.
You've got it's a legal document that's posted publicly. I would at least get that to John.
Well, I'm gonna encourage them to do that. Once I do that on their behalf, I'm acting constructively.
Okay.
If they ask me to do it, I would do it.
I know, but he's gonna be at the meeting tomorrow. and
But
then
John
he's gonna-
is there as a board member and as a member of the public. He is not there to decide whether he wants this to happen or not. And by the way, you shouldn't be doing it on the planning board process either. The planning board is the one that decides that. But my point on all of this is that we have to honor the agreements we make with these guys when they come in and, you know, they start an NDA process and all of that. So we have to honor that. All we can do is acknowledge what has been made public.
Are they aware that tomorrow at the board meeting, this next step will be public? Because there'll be a lot of people at that meeting, not just John.
Yeah, well, I think they're aware that their name, their legal name and their purchase has been made public now for 45 days. So they're fully aware of that. I mean, I was once them, so I do understand this process. I was just tended to be much more aggressive about it, but I would never have wanted Ed to go speak on my behalf ahead of me to Queensberry. I would have wanted to represent myself to Queensberry, which I can understand. That's their choice. And when they choose to do it, it's up to them. We can only counsel them on the fact that sooner would be better than later.
Well, I would counsel them again and say, and the Queensberry supervisor's a member of our board and he's gonna be hearing about this. You better get your act together.
I think they're, my guess, if I were to speculate, is that they're still organizing themselves in terms of what they want to present. You know, and it could have to do with financing, could have to do with partners, could have to do with, you know, brand name, I don't know. But I think there's a reason for
So
this.
you
'Cause
signed an NDA,
And they, by the way, they've been through this process in upstate New York before,
but
so,
you signed the NDA. Did you make sure they knew that John's a board member?
no, but
Okay.
I don't think that's the issue here. The issue is these guys already went through a bruising planning process in Schenectady County, whatever county that is. So I think that may also be informing the way that they do this. They want to manage the process based on that.
Well, when you talk about this tomorrow, I'd recommend that you start then with that you signed an NDA and you haven't been able to disclose this fully before yet, but that it is now public, correct? Or has been for 45
And by the way,
years.
I really don't think this is controversial. This is within the existing zone.
I don't think it's controversial either, but I know John well, and sometimes he gets upset that he's not being notified about things.
Well, to be fair to the process, we talked about this at every board meeting since this proposal came up. He just hasn't been there.
And maybe he won't be there tomorrow too, so, okay.
I've also asked to report to their board twice and have not been granted that. Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, that's your backstop right there.
okay, I didn't know that, all right,
Not just on this, but just as a
And
regular update, yeah.
okay.
I saw Gene this morning and said that could use some help, seeing if we could get on some agenda to update everybody.
All right, I'll
Anything,
shut up.
Well, I understand it's sensitive. I do get that. This is not willful. This is just trying to navigate the process.
anything else on the impending sale?
Well, the only other thing I would, and I've mentioned this to Kathy before, I think I mentioned it to the committee before. I'm also asking the staff to prepare a resolution where when we receive these funds, that we would immediately direct them into a board directed fund. And I have my thoughts of what I think that fund should be for, which is working capital that would allow us to seek grants without having to seek municipal working capital funds to do it. Right. You know, like this connectivity grant, which we're still trying to engage with the city just to do the working capital piece, we could have already accepted that grant and been in motion if we had the ability to put our own working capital and be reimbursed for it.
And if it's just lot 1 and 2, what's the dollar amount?
300,
300,
just over 300,
over 300?
so just over 300K, 301.
And if lot 3 was added? it'd be
That's
another-
another 89,000.
And
So
for
that
this
was-
meeting tomorrow, when I do the notes, I'll just turn this right over to you.
Yeah, that's fine. Mostly just want people to know it's still in motion.
Okay.
I think that's everything on that.
And if you go do that dollar amount, I would put it in some type of interest-bearing account if we could.
Yeah, well, where we park it, I think is one thing. What we could potentially use it for is another thing, but we'll bring a resolution to the full board. We'll work through this committee before we do that.
Okay.
Laura, I feel like I asked this question. Since we had those properties reappraised, they're worth more. Do we change that? Okay.
You can't change your cost basis. Your cost basis is what your cost basis is. The rest will be a gain that flows through.
The insurance policy.
Yep, so we're moving on to it. Is there anything else on property? Okay, so let's move on to the insurance.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I see a small correction here. So this is a chart comparing different policies. This umbrella coverage of $1 million, $1 million, and $10,000 belongs in the column directly to the right.
Under the upstate.
Yeah, under the Hartford Upstate
So,
agency.
so let's back up so you know what it is we've got. We've had the same insurer for many, many years. Was originally Kurt Yeager's firm before Kurt Yeager's firm was acquired more than once. It's now Marshall and Sterling. Kurt was the original founding member of the EDC, and so it was always our objective to do local business wherever we could. At this point, we're not doing local business because they're largely not present in market.
Have not returned a single.
We've had difficulty gaining any service from them. I think ultimately, when acquisitions like this occur and the company aggregates up and becomes a national entity, this is not unusual. So we were always in a position where I was asking Deanne to consider getting proposals for new insurance. Then what happened with the county came in to our frame of reference at the end of last year. So we then modified that approach to say we would also, if we were to have engaged Marshall and Sterling, we would have asked for a proposal for much more robust cyber and fraud type coverage. So what we did was then modify the request that we went out to market for. And we got a number of firms who responded to us. It's a little difficult to compare. She's attempted to throw some of this comparison on one chart. I stopped her in the middle of today because it just started to get to be enormous in terms of all of the variables. Let me just net it all out. There are 3 local players who are very reasonably competitive in base service. Upstate Insurance,
Northern Insuring,
and
Associates of Glens Falls.
Associates at Glens Falls.
There are others as well.
Yeah, we have other players, but we are biased to immediately look from the inside out to see whether or not if the coverage is price competitive and competitive in terms of what it actually protects us against, then we would probably choose local versus non-local. We've met with 3 of these entities and gone into detail. 2 of them, I think, offer very compelling insurance. One is, in my mind, superior, and it's superior both in terms of the coverage and in terms of its the service, the response that we got. I would tell you that I'm not surprised by this because there was a change recently at the city where Upstate Insurance was essentially discontinued with the city's coverage, and I think that was quite a shock to those guys, so I'm not surprised that they have done everything we've asked and more to try to make sure that we understand and, any question we have, they answer right away, and I think they're probably willing to make sure that their process is as competitive as it needs to be, although we haven't given them that kind of feedback yet. If I were to just do this based on the politics of it, I think it's always logical for us to immediately look across the street to one of our own board members and say, if they have a competitive offering, both in terms of cost and service, then that should be our default. But what you have in front of you, I think, is a pretty clear indication of the fact that objectively, it's also superior. Now, this umbrella that she just moved from whatever was next to it to upstate, that's probably the compelling factor here. I mean, obviously, umbrella coverage essentially extends you into all kinds of areas. They're the only ones that were offering this in addition to all the other stuff. Probably the most important conversation for us to have is whether we feel like the cyber and security, electronic security coverage here is sufficient in terms of what we're covering. So essentially what we have right now is trivial.
We don't have any, actually.
Well, I mean, there's some limits to our base liability that might give us something like $5,000 or $10,000 worth of coverage for just a general incident. Now we're talking about moving into an arena where we would have $100,000 attributable to this kind of incident. We don't generally write checks that are bigger than $100,000. So this would essentially cover us transactionally. It would not cover us in terms of our total financials if somebody were to breach our systems and somehow be able to access everything. But the cost to take that to another zero is significant. It would be for any player. We do have $1 million worth of coverage in most every other place, and in some cases even higher than that. I wanted to try to, number one, make sure you understood where we were in the process. We renewed with our existing insurers so that we would not have any lapse, we would not have any gaps. But it is my thought that we need to, prior to a year from now, we need to make whatever is the prudent change to an extended amount of coverage, which even though it is not budgeted, I don't think is going to be dramatically more expensive. $1,000?
So currently we spend about $7,700, and with the new, what we're looking at is $8,800.
So for roughly $1,000 a
We're
month.
getting much more coverage.
Right.
I don't see those numbers here.
No, so Jim did stop me from completing this.
Okay.
So what we would be paying for is that number in yellow, the 4,000, which would provide general liability, workers' comp, and cybersecurity, as well as the umbrella policy.
And you do it
That's
through
in
Hartford?
addition to what we have now.
No, well, so we would take that, we would no longer be paying the 1472 and the 1475. So we would still have this town of Queensberry property. That's this first column. I know it's not a great chart, I'm sorry. And the Chubb policy is directors and officers, which is 3,095.
So essentially what they do is just append those policies into this coverage. So they're just taking a staple and saying, whatever you had there, we would then,
They said they couldn't do better than those.
we would underwrite to that.
So you would keep those, or?
So we would
move it
keep
over?
the Evanston, we would keep the Chubb, and then we would take the Hartford. So altogether,
You'd keep Evanston, you'd keep Chubb, and then Hartford.
so
So you get
1672 plus their 3,095 plus 4,033.
So 1672, 3,095, and 4,033?
So we don't have any figures under cyber here. Is that just because you stopped filling it out?
Yes.
Yeah. So are they comparable to Northern? Or I remember looking at it on your screen, but.
Yeah, they're all, I mean, they're comparable.
So this 100,000
I
here
think the umbrella
is
policy makes.
essentially runs like this. And so essentially everybody
Runs through
offers.
each column?
Yeah, so that $100,000 is like the base of the, if you get it, it seems like that's the minimum denomination that they will write it for. And all of the agencies essentially gave us the same
I mean,
response.
this is the policy. I'm not gonna-
Yeah, we can give you any level of detail. We have hundreds of pages of stuff.
It's really,
I'm not asking you to make a decision. I think we'll go through this. We don't even have to make a decision today. What I am trying to do is to get you into the conversation with us to make a fundamental decision about whether $100,000 worth of cyber coverage is sufficient. I believe, it's $100,000 we don't have now, and I believe it would cover us on a transactional level for virtually any transaction I've ever seen. It is not full coverage of our total financial resources. We could potentially go back to them and ask them for a quote for that. I just know from the conversation we've had with them that it would be significantly more expensive.
So the only one we have right now is a post from Travelers in Bay for cyber.
these are quotes, so
So
This
those
is
are
what we
quotes.
have,
So we have no
and this is what
quote
we got
from Hartford for cyber.
No, we do. She didn't finish populating it.
Oh, what's the price for that?
the quote, well, so what Hartford, the Hartford did a general liability policy, like commercial liability, as well as cyber all in one policy.
And where's
So-
that?
And an umbrella policy.
Is it in
It's
there?
this column here.
It's in there?
And it's in this figure,
So the 4,000 includes the $100,000 basic coverage, is what you're
Yes.
saying.
yes.
Yeah,
So a
but
total
also
of
$1 million
about 80
umbrella policy.
But that probably doesn't cover cyber.
It does not. Well, at least not explicitly. That is a distinct difference, like between them. Nobody else offered that kind of umbrella coverage, which I think is a clear indication that they want this business. And so I'm inclined to think of them as certainly the most competitive of these, but what I'm trying to do is get you the right information so we can make a final decision, not today, but I am trying to get you a sense of where we are in this process. If you would like me to ask for a cyber policy that was either in an increment up to $1 million or to our full exposure, which would be roughly $1.5 million that we could potentially be exposed for based on all of our assets, I can do that. It will make this even more confusing and expensive.
Are you sure the umbrella policy doesn't cover the cyber?
Well, it does not cover it explicitly.
Not explicitly, but it's $1 million coverage of,
Right. So essentially what they're saying is that if you have, there's a lot of language that goes
I was
on.
gonna say, there's cyber is usually carved out pretty clear because it's such a hot
Yeah.
area right now.
This essentially covers things in my read, which may or may not be 100% accurate, but in my read, this does not cover director's liability because there's a unique clause and charge for that. And it does not cover explicit cyber attack that is unique to that. But let's imagine for a second that Deanne was the source of our problem. It could potentially cover it that way because we're covered against, you're right. So there are places where a cyber crime could potentially be covered by this, but not explicitly, which is the language he kept using with me, which is if all that happens is some Nigerian entity gains access to your accounts and was able to pull stuff out of your bank account, there's no negligence on any part, there's no fault on anyone's part, then this does not cover that explicitly. But it's rare for something like that to occur. There's generally breakdown in process, some kind of causality that a third party, that whether it's intentional or unintentional, and some liability associated with it. They felt very confident that, for instance, the county would have been covered by at least some of this if they had had this coverage in place.
That's good backup.
So what I was after in this conversation was mostly first telling you where we are in the process, and second of all, making sure that the path that we're on, which is to say we're looking for a modest increase in coverage with better local service, and we're looking for some reasonable amount of cyber coverage. I didn't ask for an umbrella coverage, but I like the fact that they've quoted it to me because it's adding additional liability coverage for us.
That's good to have.
It's always good policy.
But if you felt strongly that you would want to know what those figures are, I can go spend the time with, I just don't want to ask them to do the work if nobody cares, if nobody really wants it. What he told me though is this will not be $1,000 more. This would probably be measured in $10,000 more.
Well, I would expect it to be 1,000 per 100,000, somewhere in that
Something like
ballpark.
that, yeah. $1 million worth of coverage explicitly to cyber is the most expensive, highest demand policy there is today. So he was basically saying, don't ask me for this unless you really want it, because we're gonna spend some time doing some research to determine what our exposure is here. And its sticker shock will be significant. So I'm sharing that with you.
Like, we also pay quite a bit for protection and security through Adirondack.
In other words, we have some coverage that they have
Like our
about protecting
firewall, yeah.
our infrastructure. So we get some coverage if somebody were able to penetrate through those things and we were following the policies and doing all the things that we're supposed to do there, then we would get some third-party coverage there. This is a very complicated right now. I want us to be better than we are today and reasonable in this. Right now, I kind of feel like for $1,000 more a year to have this additional coverage is kind of a good sweet spot to point at least for a proposed, resolution to the full board.
Yeah.
But this is a working conversation amongst financial professionals where you may have different experiences and opinions.
Well, in my opinion, insurance is a good bank, but there's also has to be a way to balance as to what you're getting for that coverage. And it's hard to justify a $10,000 premium every year. There goes your in 10 years, your whole reserve is gone. So we seriously have to look at that part of it and the exposure.
We use literally every protection we can. What's the process we have with the bank?
Positive rate.
Yeah.
Positive pay, check,
We still sign checks by hand. There's 4 signatures that are required before anything actually winds up transacting, 2 to approve and 2 to actually execute. There's a slow, deliberate process on all of this. So I think if I were looking at this as my business, this is probably where I would settle in terms of value versus risk.
So as I look at this, and down here under the heading of cybercrime, you said that all of these policies had it all the way across.
Yeah, although
well, so maybe I should complete this chart.
So my question is, when you look at cyber coverage and you see liability, well, does the Hartford policy have it, or does only the Travelers policy have it, based on the way this chart is built? And breach response, same thing. Is this available over here, or?
these are not universal terms, so one.
No, that's the problem, is that what one company calls them is not what another company calls them. And I think the Hartford is more general in the way that it lists the coverage, and the Travelers was very explicit. And
Well, I'm happy to provide this to you. I just didn't want to do it without some context of why I'm giving you this. We're happy to make these
yeah,
proposals
I think
available to you so you can comb through them too.
Yeah, I'm not even so much interested in pouring through the policy specifically. I'm just trying to, if we're doing a comparison, I'm just,
So I would say that these do not carry over here at all. We really have almost no cyber, we have a very basic, like one mention of cybersecurity, and it's not
You're talking about
$1
in our
million
existing
in our
stuff.
existing policies.
So-
These are our existing policies. So there's
The first 3 are the existing, that's where I think I
first
lost.
4.
The first, okay, so this is, that's, I thought these were, all right, that's what I'm confused.
Draw the line right there.
Yeah, up
Okay, so this
to
is the
continental
existing
casualty, these are,
And what we're trying to decide is between the last 2 columns, but she didn't.
So the Hartford is a new bid and the Travelers is a new bid.
Yes, and I
and what is at bay?
at Bay is the one that I didn't finish, and they offered, they have $1 million aggregate limit for $800, a $2 million aggregate limit for $1,300, and $3 million.
It's general liability.
No, this is just cyber. So the advantage of the one from the Hartford is that they combine cyber, this is the Hartford is providing a combination of workers' comp, general business liability, and cybersecurity,
All
as
under,
well as an
all under
umbrella policy.
one policy.
It's always better when you can be under one coverage. There's no boilerplate.
The others are essentially bringing you a third party that they're representing with another carrier that's under their banner. That's what At Bay is. In Traveler's case, who's providing the cyber?
Travelers was just, I think there's a directors and officers and cybersecurity. That's what, that policy, like, that's why they're not, it's not apples to apples, like, each one is different, but this one was, it was just the same coverage we already have for directors and officers and employees, and then like a full suite of cybersecurity. But I can't say that we're not getting this kind of coverage here as well, it's just the language is very different.
Well, all right, we'll take another crack at making this easier for you to
You know,
understand,
look,
which is really a comparison of the last two columns properly filled out.
Like, this sheet is a lot easier to follow than this.
Okay, but let's go back to what I was trying to do in this meeting, which was not make a decision, but bring you into the process. What we have asked for right now is their assessment of what they believe reasonable cyber coverage would be, and this is what we've received. So they will not be apples to apples. They're essentially proposing, here's what we think you need, here's what we're covering, and this is what we're gonna charge you. The one that I feel right now makes the most sense is this one from Upstate, which would then include some elements of this in addition to that, but I know this is confusing, but again, I'm not trying to get you to decide which policy to sign. What I am trying to do is say, if the numbers here that are covered, which tends to be closer to $100,000 than it is to $1 million, if that kind of cyber coverage is not something you feel is reasonable, then we have to go back and ask them for a second iteration of the proposal.
Right, so for the meeting tomorrow, we're basically telling the board that, staff is working with our committee, we're working with you to review proposals, and that you've been seeking proposals and information from about 7 different insurance providers, including ones that we currently do business with, and that we hope to be back within a month or two with something final, and that we may be making some adjustments and changes based on
Yes.
that.
That would be a wonderful thing.
So, and this right now, when did you just renew?
We just renewed for June 1st.
That's what I thought. So you're not looking to do a policy change mid-year, you're looking to get this all in play for next June, or you're looking
I'll
to?
execute it as soon as we
Okay.
get closure
They'll
on it. and then
reimburse us.
We'll get a refund for, we'll make that change and get 9 months worth of coverage and get a refund. But what I don't want to do is make this decision in haste. So I didn't try to do it to line up so we could do it on June 1st or whatever the policy end date was.
I will complete this. I will make this more reader friendly. I take feedback.
And do you pay monthly to the current ones, or do you pay
No,
every
it's an
6
annual.
months? It's an annual?
Yeah.
Okay.
And is
So
there a
we've
minimum
already paid
policy
and we
earned?
would get.
A minimum probably.
Sometimes policies have a 90-day minimum. If you cancel after 45 days, you're still gonna have to pay them for 90. Depends on how, it's a minimum. There's actually,
I don't know. I've asked that question. I could ask any question to Marshall Sterling and I will get no answer at all. Not from an email, not from a phone call. Every
We'll do our
email-
best to discern that by the.
I'm just saying, so you're aware that that's a potential.
And right now, I believe that it's probably at least $1,000 more of unbudgeted insurance expense for what we're seeing in terms of what's coming back to us. I would probably make the recommendation that we do that anyway, just to get the additional coverage sooner rather than later, not wait a year to put it in place. Remember that the county had already made the decision to move to a new insurer, but had not executed the policy when their breach occurred. So that is the worst possible spot to be in, where you already made the decision to go get the coverage, but you didn't put it in place and now you're still stuck. I think we could probably do this by the August board meeting. Not looking for a decision at tomorrow's board, just want to make sure they know where we are. But I do want to give you the opportunity to weigh in, whether it's today or any other time, with your thoughts about coverage levels and additional elements to this that you would like us to explore.
So we may be looking at this in July and getting it, and then again in August in preparation for the audit. Okay.
I guess my biggest question is, we constantly do training at the hospital. Obviously, hospitals are big targets for this kind of stuff, and it's patient records, and it's AR, and it's AP, and it's all those things. So I think part of deciding what to get, the question would be, one of your interns doesn't recognize a funky email and clicks on an attachment that freezes everything. What do you lose? What needs to be restored? What needs to be fixed?
So you're thinking about different scenarios and what the coverage liability might be in that case.
That's a ransomware, I believe, and
Oh,
you're
that's
talking about an actual
ransomware.
hack.
Ransomware is also covered in some of this.
All right.
But all of our stuff is.
It's just one for instance, right? But, how sensitive is the data that they've now got access to? How, when you talk about reputation management,
Here's the good news. All of our data is recorded in multiple places. Not only do we have our stuff backed up every night, probably like you, and our third party is backing up their servers as well, but the state is backing up everything we have every time we make a submission to them on our financials as well. Not full, it wouldn't be every transaction, but we would not lose track of our historical data record because the state has it as well. So
Through PAAA,
Well, to be fair, though,
They-
we don't have
they don't keep
confidential.
it forever though.
There's
There
very
is a
little that
time
we
when
have
they
that's
take it
actually
back.
confidential,
I think it's 7 years.
aside from like employee records. It's not like patient, like almost everything we have is already
and theoretically is publicly
public.
available.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to dismiss it. We tend to focus on different vulnerabilities with our,
We should never
with
keep
ADK
our
Tech.
employee records on.
Phishing stuff, we have, one of the services they provide to us is that they will occasionally try to penetrate our network unbeknownst to us and see how we respond to it and tell us about that. We also go through a whole series of what I would consider to be fairly low intensity training where, they have modules that they're trying to use and they come meet with us periodically to talk about our exposures. My guess is that we're less vigilant maybe than you are and more than we were a year or two ago. It's not targeted to a public entity, it's targeted to small business, that's where the service is. So in some cases, it may not be a direct overlay to us.
LBC. Items also.
Well, so here's what we will do. We will do a better job of filling out this chart so you can see what we're actually need to compare, which is the two proposals that we think are most competitive here. And what those additional costs would be. If in the interim, you would like us to get either more information or options for additional coverage, just let me know and we will ask for that. But I didn't want to do it gratuitously unless we felt like we absolutely needed it.
So,
And when you do this, I would just recommend that you, maybe,
Identify what we already have.
yes,
current coverage.
get current, just, create a- another title up at top so we know that we're comparing current coverage against proposed.
So for my own understanding, you're basically recoding what we currently have and adding cyber and a potential umbrella.
Well, we didn't ask for the umbrella, but it was proposed to us and I like it, so we'll include it.
No, I like it too. I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm just making sure
But
that I'm
yes.
understanding. You're essentially put out to bid what we currently have for our coverage rates and ask for their recommendations, and they came back with, we think you should have cyber and we think you should have an umbrella.
That's absolutely right. And one of them said, here's cyber, and one of them said, here's cyber and an umbrella. Because the question was, what do we need? And so we answered it differently. And we will do a better job of explaining exactly what we have now, but which is less than either of those.
Well, you're enhancing what we have, but you're starting with the base package and adding more coverage. That's what I was trying to understand. It was apples to apples to a point.
Good luck putting that all in the minutes.
I'll rewatch it.
I think,
I thought the chart was hard.
Anything else on business insurance?
Just that if we sell those properties, that insurance is gonna go down. That happens, right?
Well, yeah, until you do something else, so that's all connected. Any other business today? An executive session? Okay, there being no further business, should we have a motion to dismiss?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So we have a 4:57.
And we're July 14th.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks for getting back to me so quickly the other day.
No, we're not, we're July 16.
Says 14.
It says 14 right here.
Gotcha. Yes, yes.
Thanks for getting back to me, because I was only like out of my parking lot a little ways when you